Okay. Good morning, everybody. Not exactly sure why people are asking if I missed the morning update. This should have been set to go off at 7:45. Usually, my morning updates are 7:45 a.m. My apologies if something was thrown off. Dallas. Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Deidre. But no, they're seven. I shoot for 7:45 a.m. and I'll look into what occurred that might have thrown that off. So my apologies if there's been any confusion about that. It That's the times that I do these, and so yeah. So let me do this. Hold on a second here. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the world today. There's a meeting that's a pretty important meeting with the United States and China taking place in Alaska right now, and it's about with the ongoing relationship that the United States has with China. As people know, if they've listened to any of my broadcasts as well as what I've written over the past few years, I'm extremely critical of China and the CCP. I think that they've done a tremendous amount of damage to this world, to the United States, our institutions internally, and I think that they are they're no different than, as far as I'm concerned, they're worse than communism. And not just communism, they're worse than what the Soviet Union was and Nazi Germany rolled into one. Okay, let me repeat that again because I'm sure they're watching me, and I get some weird people from China looking at me all the time on LinkedIn. China, the CCP today, is far worse than Nazi Germany and the former Soviet Union. They took the practices from both systems and they've combined them into one system, and they've furthermore taken and bribed officials across the United States in a manner similar to what they did to form China. China, folks, was put together, if you study its history, by the Qin dynasty, who literally just basically bribed everybody to form China. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, don't be mad at me for telling everybody what they did. This is what they did. And so we need to understand what we are up against when we're dealing with a regime that commits such insane crimes, not just against its own people, but citizens around the world. And if we don't recognize the enemy for who they are and how they behave, it's going to be extremely difficult for us to make the necessary changes that I do believe need to be made in order to recage this dragon. If anybody has seen the whole Game of Thrones series, I do think that there is a correlation between the Game of Thrones as well as the China's rise, that some silly people decided to unleash some very evil people that were controlling the Chinese structure and system, and they unleashed them on the world. And I think it's been a disaster for humanity with that regime that's currently in control of China. So there's 5 things that the Secretary of State of the United States came out and said. Now, keep in mind, I'm not the biggest fan of the current Secretary of State of the United States. Why am I not a big fan of his? Well, it turns out that Mr. Blinken, his name is Anthony Blinken, he has been a swamp creature for some time. He started out in the Clinton administration back in 1994. He was there until 2001. Then he joined the Bush administration. He was there for a number of years. And then from that time in the Bush administration, he actually pushed for an invasion of Iraq. So this is one of those deep state assets that goes through one administration to the next. Then he worked for Benedict Barry for a while, and then he was, I think, the undersecretary or deputy secretary of state under no other than Kerry, a classmate of George Bush's at Yale. And it's good to see all these people keep it in the family, so to speak. the same crime family. That is, these individuals are all have all been calling the shots behind the scenes for quite some time. This individual is now the Secretary of State of the United States. He's I think he's bad news personally. But what's going on with him? With this Alaska deal. Well, in the talks between the United States and China, I don't know how much of this is just posturing and how much of this is sincere, because frankly, I don't trust the current administration. I do not think I am alone with my distrust of the current administration. I do think that there's a good chance that many officials within the current administration have been compromised by China. Frankly, it's not just this administration. I think we have politicians across this entire nation in Congress right now, as well as state governments, as well as local governments across this nation that have been compromised by evil, corrupt Chinese operators, handlers of the CCP. The numbers are staggering if you look at them, folks. I'm hopeful that the NSA is doing something to root these individuals out. I don't know if that's happening. Maybe I'm just being overly optimistic. But what I do know is they've had massive sway on a lot of cities and states, and so much sway that the unheard of individuals running for office that openly, let me repeat that, they openly violate the U.S. Constitution and hold themselves out as a communist candidate. The mayor of Chicago, the mayor of New York, a senator from Georgia. They do not shy away from the fact that they are openly communists. Communists are literally violating the U.S. Constitution. That is the rule book that 2/3 of the American public supported through our blood and treasure over the past 240 plus years. These people are traitors. They should have never been allowed to get into office. They should have been disqualified the moment they said they were communists. But somehow our system is broken down and it's failing us because it's allowing these types of individuals that are blatantly violating our Constitution, the will of the people, and openly. So, with that backdrop, he did start out by saying Xinjiang. Okay. Now, what's pretty funny is the press reported Xinjiang, right? And that he has a problem with that. Well, the press, the media in this country, probably knows that a lot of Americans won't take the time to even look into what that means. They're censoring the word Uyghur, the Uyghur, the people. Maybe YouTube's going to censor this now too because I just said that word, Uyghur. Those are the people that are being treated and not treated. They're being enslaved in concentration camps type of structures. Some of these people, there's reports that the CCP is selling their organs. Some people are literally being killed so their organs could be sold and harvested. Some people are being forced to renounce their religion. Okay, I haven't said the nicest thing about some Muslims, in terms of the fringe group, and I don't think that ideology fits with Judeo-Christian Western values. It's incompatible with the way it's currently structured with our values. I've made that known plenty of times. And that being said, I don't wish these folks ill will. I don't think they should be harvested. I don't believe they should be killed the way China is killing people of Muslim faith. I think it's disgusting. We should boycott. The whole world should boycott China for these crimes against humanity, these crimes against other human beings. It's a very serious problem, folks. And there's been pretty much a blackout on the U.S. as well as other countries around the world that people are not speaking up on behalf of this religious persecution. They're not speaking up enough. There are some people that are speaking up, but not enough people are speaking up to the religious persecution that is taking place on Chinese soil right now. And I think it's horrific. I think it's disturbing that we haven't done more as the United States. as well as the world community. But you know, maybe there's some players at work that want to see a larger global conflict, and that's why they're letting this kind of continue to build. They also brought up Hong Kong, Taiwan, which we know. I've mentioned this plenty of times in the past. Hong Kong, Taiwan, you know, and what's the other one? Is Singapore, right? So Singapore is a trading port, Taiwan and Hong Kong. Those three nations, okay? Because I view Hong Kong and Taiwan, they should be their own nations. They should not be part of China. And Singapore falls into that category as well. I mean, it's its own nation, but you know, if China successfully tries to steal Taiwan, which Taiwan is the one that should have been in the UN, Red China should have never been allowed into the UN. That was one of the biggest policy mistakes in global history, to let a communist nation into the United Nations back in the 70s. And it set the stage for the routing and the looting of America. But with regards to free Chinese people, I don't have my problem is not with the Chinese people. I think a lot of Americans agree with me. Honest, God-loving, God-fearing, whatever you want to say, Chinese people that care about their family, care about freedom, want to be left alone in peace. That's not my issue. My issue is these thugs that control these people in China that don't want anything to do with the criminal activities of the CCP that they're espousing across this planet. Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong are a great example of what freedom looks like for people of Chinese descent. Now, keep in mind, there's plenty of Chinese people, not just in those three countries, in the United States, as well as in Europe, that have done incredibly well. And they have strong values. The ones that are actually following the core principles of what leads to success and freedom, they thrive economically. In fact, people, you know, the reason why I bring up Taiwan and bring up Singapore and Hong Kong is because it's so homogeneous with Chinese descent that you can see the contrast between what does a free nation look like of Chinese descent folks and what's it look like when it's controlled by thugs. And Singapore, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, their per capita GDP is over 6 times that of mainland China. So the average person there is doing well over $60,000 a year in income, and it's under $10,000. And those numbers are inflated in mainland China. I think they're probably lying about those numbers like they lie about a lot of other stuff. But that's why I pointed out. And, you know, those nation states, they, you know, this whole grab for Hong Kong, I went through the math. The Hong Kong stock market, when China made these aggressive moves to try to take Hong Kong and violate the agreement that was signed with the UK, you know, I think it was worth over half of mainland China, which is pretty impressive because it only has 1/42. So there's 42 times as many people in mainland China as Hong Kong, and yet Hong Kong, the valuation of Hong Kong was over half of the valuation of the Chinese equity markets. I think it was even more than that. It might have been like 60, 70% when I looked at it. But my point is, the world equity markets, world investors, free people understand that when people are free to their own, you know, abilities to create, great things happen. And China doesn't understand, the CCP doesn't understand that. They think they can coerce people with a gun to do their bidding. And they have inferior ideas, so they need to use force to try to get people to follow their ill-conceived and evil ideas. And, you know, it was good to see this swamp creature, our current Secretary of State, actually address these issues head on with China. Like I said, I can't tell yet, because I don't trust this administration, if he's truly sincere. The rhetoric sounds good. It makes for good press. but who knows what backroom deals are being done. Maybe this is the facade they're trying to show the world, while other deals are being done behind the scenes with the Secretary of State and other officials within the current administration to further undermine the interests of the United States and free people around the world. Time will tell. But I do think it's a nice opening salvo at a minimum. And so hopefully, a lot of people realize that China is evil, the evil empire 2.0. It is not any different than Hitler's Germany. The CCP is nothing less than Hitler's Germany. They've been attacking the entire planet with cyber attacks. That was also addressed in the initial meeting. They mentioned cyber attacks, economic bullying that's been taking place around the world. I think that each nation state of this planet should look into any money coming in from Chinese individuals that are moving onto their soil and trace the roots of that money to make sure that it's not tied to the corrupt CCP, and make sure that those individuals that are coming onto soil in the United States as well as elsewhere in the world are not staging grounds for a larger attack in the future that's coordinated by the Communist Party of China. I do think this is a very serious issue long term, and I think that the free peoples in every nation around the world should look into this. They should make sure that these individuals are not allowed to purchase property, on U.S. soil, on Australian soil, on European soil, if they have any ties to the CCP. In fact, they should be given an exit. They should be saying, look, you have 90 days, 120 days, whatever, get out of here. You can't have any assets in our country. And we should ban any flows of investment into China until the CCP is dismantled. That's obviously, I'm not a policymaker, folks. This is just my take on the situation, because I do think that they have a lot of evil plans for this planet. And if we don't speak up now, while we're still in the position of power and have the right, we have the right frameworks to preserve freedom and justice for all, even with our flawed justice system right now, it's still the most honest and best system the world has ever had. I know that's tough to absorb, folks, because it's aggravating when we see criminals get away with these crimes across all levels of government as well as in our economy. But the reality is even with all of our flaws, our system of justice is probably the most just on this planet, which is telling you just how much worse it is everywhere else. And that being said, open dialogue, free, transparency that we have in the American system, people speaking up and having the ability to speak up and not be censored. This is the whole reason why we're able to continue to make more progress and improve upon our existing infrastructure and systems. We don't blindly follow who is in charge because they're in charge. Now, granted, we have bouts of that where we get lazy, I guess, in different cities, states. Myself, I've been lazy in the past, not being involved with politics, but I'm not going to be lazy anymore. I'm going to stay focused on active citizenship. I encourage everybody else to also become more active in your citizenship. It is a core part of your identity. It's a core part of our national identity and your personal identity. You owe it to yourself and to your family, as well as, I guess, future generations, if you're going to have kids or if you have kids and have grandkids, and you owe it to pay it forward. We've been blessed to have these freedoms, to live in a country that allows us to prosper, speak our mind, pray to our own God in our own way. And we need to preserve those key rights for all Americans, but also be an example to the rest of the 200 plus nations on this planet, that they know America stands for something that it wants its own country to stand for as well. And I think with that, the markets seem to be up a little bit after the sell-off yesterday. Oil is maybe up less than 1%. It was down over 7% yesterday. And today's quadruple witching, which basically means, options, futures, individual stock futures, as well as stock options all expire today. So it's going to, on days like this, I think they happen once a quarter. I'm not 100% sure. I think on the single stock futures, I think it's once a quarter, not once a month. All of this activity leads to swings in asset prices, and things could be a little more volatile than normal. So once again, this isn't giving anybody financial advice, but I do think that when there's a lot of volatility in the markets, in either direction, folks, there's a lot of volatility where things are selling off a lot, you should have your shopping list. You should consider having a shopping list of things that you really want to own. When things are getting really crazy and the party's going loud and there's a lot of someone spiking the punch bowl with some alcohol or something and things are flying up, that's a good time to usually de-risk. So all I can tell you is I'm not telling you have to do anything, but I'm just saying that as a rule of thumb, when the music's loud, you should consider selling into it instead of buying. When everybody's overly excited about where things are going, and then when everybody's overly depressed, if you know what you want to own and what the price is and what you should, that you want to put your money to work at specific times, do it when people are just being a little overly silly, I guess. You need to determine both, though, which one's being overly silly in both directions, or find an investment professional that can do that for you. If you don't have someone that you feel confident in that can help you with your money, check out Preactive Investments. That's my company, and my wife's a CFP, and I'm the portfolio manager. I manage money into individual stocks. Fill out the questionnaire, and we're more than happy to talk to you. But please talk to a professional of some sort, even if you never contact us. Keep watching the broadcast if you find them valuable for helping you make decisions and so forth. So with that, thank you everybody for saying hello. Good morning, Trisha, Clancy, Dina, Matt. Don't chase. That's why I always lose. Yes, you don't ever want to chase, folks. It's not a good idea. To chase things that you feel like you're missing out. You end up from going from missing out to missing a bunch of your money that you went into the chase with. So I think that you got to be super careful if you're going to play that game. Hi, Eli Shiva, and I think with that I will see you guys at 4:00. I might do an afternoon broadcast. I'll see if I have time about a couple other things. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you find something that I said useful. Have a great day.